Hi friends, Steve here in Palm Springs, and as you can tell, my eyes are very red, very puffy. They've almost been swollen shut because of allergies and dry eye. I feel like this eye here is just full of sand no matter how many drops I put in. I have medicated drops, I have prescription drops, I have over-the-counter drops. I've tried everything for the last 2 days and nothing helps. So I think what I'm going to do is just put my glasses on so I don't gross all of you out. I'm here at the corner, the intersection, the very busy intersection of Ramon Road and Farrell Drive. Both are pretty major streets here in South Palm Springs, and I was actually here just last week walking around the little Beverly Hills neighborhood, which is just a block from here, and I didn't realize at the time that this famous person, this very famous Palm Springs resident, was killed right here in a two-car collision at this intersection. I didn't discover that until just a few days later. So I wanted to come back and walk around and show you the intersection and tell you the very sad story about what happened to Arthur Elrod back on February 18th, 1974. If you're a Palm Springs resident, the name Arthur Elrod probably rings a bell. You may actually know exactly who I'm talking about, especially if you love mid-century modern homes and design. Arthur Elrod was a very famous interior designer here in Palm Springs, and actually nationally. He was nationally known, and he was the interior designer to the stars back then. And many say that he's responsible for creating the mid-century modern design style that we all love so much here in Palm Springs. His clients included celebrities like Lucille Ball, Bob Hope, Walt Disney, and many, if not most, of the A-list celebrities of that era. He was young, handsome, rich, famous, and very successful. He had it all, and in one instance, right here at this intersection, it was all taken away. He lost his life in a terrible, terrible two-car collision. It happened at 2:50 a.m. on February 18th, 1974. He was traveling in a small convertible Fiat when it was struck by another car, reportedly driven by a teenage drunk driver. The other passenger in the car was his associate, William Razor. He was also a designer, and they worked together. And I haven't been able to find a lot of information online. I mean, this was, around 50 years ago? So I'm not sure who was driving, and I don't know whatever happened to the drunk driver. So if any of you happen to know, please share with us in the comments section. I know some of you are very good investigators and like to try to track down information that's not readily available. So if any of you happen to know, or if any of you happen to have been living here in the desert at the time and remember what happened, and the funny thing is, I was actually living here with my grandmother in 1974 when this happened. But I was pretty young at the time, and I don't think I read the newspaper every day. Maybe I read the headlines, but I don't remember hearing about this at all. And I know she got the newspaper, the local Desert Sun newspaper, and I see online that they did have an article about it, of course, but I wasn't able to access that information online. Elrod is probably most famous for his home, which is called the Elrod House. As a designer, he collaborated with famous architect John Lautner, and the home was built in 1968 up at the very top of the hill, and I think you can probably see it from this intersection. Although there might be trees in the way, but it's not very far from his very famous home, which is located in the Southridge neighborhood of Palm Springs, up on the top of the hill. His neighbors were Bob Hope and Steve McQueen, and years later, Suzanne Summers. That's the community she was living in when she died. It's a gated community with a guard at the gate, so unfortunately, it's not possible to go visit unless you know someone there and you're invited into the community. The home itself has been on tour during Modernism Week. So it is possible to view and tour the home during Modernism Week when it happens to be on tour. And I haven't visited the house, but I would really like to. So the next time it is available for tour, I will definitely see if I can get a ticket. I know some of the very famous homes like this sell out fast, the tours. But if I'm ever able to visit, I will definitely do that and share that with you. In the meantime, if you want to see what the house looks like inside, of course you can go online and Google it, but it also appeared in a very, very famous movie. And I'm sure some of you have seen the movie. Probably all of you have seen the movie. It was the 1971 James Bond film, Diamonds Are Forever. It was filmed at the Elrod House. The home was built in 68, and then the movie came out in 71, so it was probably filmed in 1970, and the house was just a couple of years old. Is it ringing a bell with you now? Not only was the home used as a movie set for this very classic movie, but the parties Elrod held at the home were also legendary. And if any of you attended any of those parties, please share with us in the comments section. That would be so fun to hear your memories of some of those parties. Oh, and something else I should mention, just because he was kind of a trailblazer in this area as well, he was openly gay, and this was back in the 1970s when almost nobody was openly gay, especially people who were famous. Most gay people at the time, being out of the closet wasn't an option. It was still illegal in most parts of the country, maybe all parts of the country, to be gay, to be openly gay. So he was a kind of a trailblazer in that way as well. And often that part of history gets erased, so I didn't want to erase that in this video. And did I mention already that he was only 49 years old when he was killed here? And Razor, I believe, was about the same age. I was curious if Elrod was buried here in Palm Springs, so I checked Find a Grave, and he wasn't buried here. He was taken back home. Now I can't remember. He was born in Atlanta, Georgia, and I can't remember if that's where he's buried. But if you check Find a Grave, you'll be able to visit his gravesite virtually. But he wasn't buried here in the desert, even though he was very famous here and he lived here for 2 decades. That happens a lot where people die here in Palm Springs, but they're not always buried here. Even if they loved it here, sometimes their families make the decision because they didn't have advanced plans, and the families decide to bring them home to be buried near the family, wherever that happens to be at the time. So if you go down 1 block on Ramon, 1 block east, and you look up on the hillside, you can see Arthur Elrod's former Palm Springs home. Right below, it looks like, I think it's the one right below Bob Hope's home. The one that looks like a spaceship. Elrod's home looks a little bit like a spaceship as well. It's round. And the corner where he was killed is right there where the red light is. That's Farrell Drive and Ramon Road. Makes me wonder if he was coming home from an event. The articles, none of them said which direction he was headed in. Was he on Ramon, headed this direction, heading home? That would make sense at almost 3 o'clock in the morning. I guess he could have been leaving, going out of town, or driving somewhere at 3 o'clock in the morning, but more likely he was coming home from a party or an event in the downtown Palm Springs area. If any of you know, please share with us. As always, thanks for joining me today and sharing the memories, and I hope to see you all next time.